Washington State, my home state, has a long and unfortunate history of being very bad to its transit systems. The Seattle area alone has rejected at least 5 rail proposals that were taken to voters, but statewide, things can be even bleaker. In 1999, the state's voters passed Initiative 695, sponsored by conservative activist Tim Eyman. Inspired by a no-car tax initiative in Virginia, the initiative lowered the state's motor vehicle taxes to a flat $30 and made several other changes to the state's tax structure. While most of it was ruled unconstitutional by the state Supreme Court, the $30 car tab was allowed to remain. This caused massive cuts to transit service, and transit agencies lost service that they never regained. One example is Intercity Transit in Thurston County, which prior to I-695 had operated a widespread network of rural transit throughout the county, with around 10 routes. Today, only one of those routes remains, and while a local nonprofit has since picked some of them back up, many of the towns served by the network, such as Boston Harbor, have yet to see another bus. Other transit agencies had to cut things like Sunday service and had just started restoring it when the 2008 financial crisis happened and they were forced to cut service again. Then COVID-19 happened and transit was in a tailspin for several years. Transit in Washington State is finally starting to recover. There still aren't as many buses on the road in the bigger transit systems as there were pre-pandemic, but ridership is climbing and the smaller systems are thriving. Washington State has a strong network of rural transit services, which provide useful connections between cities, towns, and places in between. This is usually provided by a variety of county-based agencies, such as Jefferson Transit and Pacific Transit. These agencies then connect with each other at transit hubs, creating a network that spans most of the state, just on local buses. These smaller transit agencies have been thriving since the pandemic, thanks mostly to something called the Climate Committment Act, or CCA, from 2021. This act is a form of carbon tax in Washington State, but was agreed on by both the state and the oil companies that it would tax, with agreed-upon limits and growth over time. It's a strong policy, and a lot of its revenue gets put into transit operations. A huge portion of this is for the smaller transit agencies of the state. For example, Jefferson Transit has been able to eliminate fares entirely, introduce a new express service, and run its local services later into the evening. Pacific Transit has introduced nearly a half-dozen new bus routes, and has introduced Sunday service. Island Transit has added Sunday service for the first time since the agency was founded, and has also expanded service significantly thanks to the CCA. But it isn't just rural transit that the CCA pays for. In 2022, the state introduced a free youth fare program where everyone 18 and under in Washington is guaranteed a free ride on transit and on Amtrak Cascades trains and coach buses within the state. This has caused youth ridership to shoot up, giving newfound freedom to the state's younger population. The CCA also pays for large-scale bus fleet electrification projects, bringing battery and hydrogen-powered buses to agencies both large and small across the state at a significantly reduced cost. This has made electric buses much more accessible to transit agencies running on a limited budget and has allowed them to refresh their fleets with newer, more modern buses, all thanks to the CCA. The CCA also supports operations on bus routes that serve underserved communities, such as in South King County, where every single route operating out of King County Metro's South Base is CCA supported. South King County has been historically underserved by transit, so this has allowed Metro to ensure residents get to keep their existing service levels and even expand service in some areas. One other aspect, which is the most talked about with the CCA, is ferries. The CCA supports the struggling Washington State ferry system and is allowing the system to look into buying hybrid and electric ferries in the future, reducing the impact of this transportation lifeline. It also provides funding for Kitsap Fast Ferries as they look towards buying new vessels and expanding their highly successful passenger-only express ferry service. Overall, the CCA has been a massive success for transit across Washington State. The act has paid for transit in both rural and urban contexts, given free rides to youth, given out better bus fleets, and helped the ailing ferry system, all within the first 3 years of its existence. However, all of this CCA magic could go away after November. On the ballot this November is an initiative maybe even more evil than I-695 was. This is I-2117, put on the ballot by a group of billionaires and multimillionaires who don't want to pay as much taxes. This group is led by Brian Haywood, an investor who happens to be friends with, you guessed it, Tim Eyman. Haywood, along with his other ultra-rich far-right friends, want to pass I-2117 so that they don't have to pay taxes to support the one group of people they hate the most: poor people. I-2117 would repeal the CCA entirely, and without an alternate source of revenue, all of the beautiful changes that the CCA has brought would probably cease to exist. The argument for I-2117 is the claim that the CCA raises gas prices, and that's the only argument they have. But unfortunately, it's an effective one, especially in places like Eastern Washington. A lot of Washingtonians drive, and they feel the pressure of gas prices on their bills each month. However, this entire argument is based on a lie. The CCA doesn't raise gas prices. It's not a tax on consumers at all. The CCA is entirely a tax on polluters, namely big oil companies, who are more than capable of affording a few extra cents of tax on each purchase someone makes. Even if the cost of the CCA were to be passed down to the consumer directly, it would be a very small difference in price overall. Thankfully, there is a strong group of people working to fight I-2117. This includes big names like Amazon and some of the oil companies who originally helped create the CCA. However, the support is far more widespread, with community groups, Native American tribes, city and county councils, and more voicing their opposition to the initiative. If you want to get involved, No on 2117 is a strong campaign against this initiative. If I-2117 passes, the effects will be wide-reaching. Washington state will lose huge amounts of transit funding and will have to reverse improvements it's made over the last 3 years. There will also be impacts to roads, ferries, and other transportation infrastructure. Everyone will feel the squeeze as the budget compresses down to a much smaller level than it really should be at. And imagine, if we kept the CCA, what kind of beautiful work we could accomplish. Transit could run more frequently, to more places, for more hours of the day and days of the week. We could ensure everyone has affordable access to a high-quality transportation network. If we keep the CCA, transit in Washington could finally have the chance to move forward after so many setbacks. We're teetering on the edge of the cliff, and we have to make a decision. We can either vote down I-2117 and keep up the great work with transit and other modes of transportation, or we can pass it and descend into a world of car dependency, coupled with unreliable and infrequent transit that doesn't serve everywhere we need to go. So, the choice is yours this November. What will you decide?